Alabama. I'm going to check the math, but I think that might have been the case. But let's start with a guy who began his career at Alabama and finished it at Oklahoma. Jalen Hurts, he was the big name coming off the board, the only quarterback that went during rounds 2 and 3, picked 53rd overall by the Philadelphia Eagles, a guy that accounted for more than 50 touchdowns, more than 30 through the air, 20 on the ground. He will now be vying for the role as Carson Wentz's backup. And yes, Howie Roseman, Doug Peterson, they were on the same page here. Of course, Doug Peterson, quite the creative play caller, so is he going to use him kind of like Sean Payton does use Taysom Hill in New Orleans? That's the big question. As for Roseman, the GM, he said earlier today, I spoke with Carson Wentz about the options at this pick, and one of them was Jalen. So he had a heads up ahead of time. We're sitting here at the end of the second round. This is not a first-round pick. This is the end of the second round. We just felt like this was the right thing to do, and the right thing to do based on our beliefs. And for more on this, we welcome in our NFL media insider, Ian Rapoport. All right, Ian, this is very different than the way it played out in Green Bay. You told us earlier today on the pregame show that the Green Bay Packers really did not give Aaron Rodgers a heads up that they were going to be taking Jordan Love with their first-round pick. Philadelphia does tell Carson Wentz here about Jalen Hurts, but how did this all go down?
Yeah, and this really was someone when the Philadelphia Eagles sat down earlier this morning and figured out who would be there in the second round. Jalen Hurts was very firmly in the picture, and my understanding when they got on the clock, after, by the way, as you mentioned, they had given Carson Wentz a heads up that this was a possibility. This was described to me as a very easy pick. They want to be, the Philadelphia Eagles do, in the business of developing quarterbacks. They want to be a quarterback factory. And of course, Carson Wentz is their franchise quarterback. They used so much capital to go up and draft him. They gave him a massive contract. He is their starter, no question. But he also has been injured some, so maybe a little bit of a backup plan. We've seen the New Orleans Saints have a ton of success with Taysom Hill in a lot of different roles. That's one thing the Philadelphia Eagles could do with Jalen Hurts. And then you look at the New England model with Jimmy Garoppolo. No, he didn't end up taking over for Tom Brady, was not the successor. But in the end, he was active every week and got them a second rounder. That might be the worst case scenario for the Philadelphia Eagles here, a solid investment at the most important position.
And in case you're wondering, there's one other quarterback on the roster. That is Nate Sudfeld. So what's Carson Wentz's reaction? He says, welcome to the best football city in America, brother. It's very, very nice. Well done. All right, so here to break it all down, we welcome in Charles Davis and our former Pro Bowl wideout, Steve Smith. All right, Smitty, let's start with you. Were you shocked when the Eagles took Jalen Hurts?
I was shocked that they took him. However, when you really look at it and you break down what happened last night with the Green Bay Packers, it's not all that surprising. Aaron Rodgers has really played in 15-plus games, 10 out of the 12 seasons. That's an insurance policy. Aaron Rodgers is considered an old man in football terms, 35 years old. Carson Wentz is 27. He's been injured, right? So nothing wrong with that. Carson Wentz isn't immune to a backup, and Josh McCown was the backup, and he's older as well, too, and possibly retiring. So they need someone to really look forward to just in case, air quotes, Carson Wentz gets hurt again. It's happened, and it's not Carson's fault, and I'm not digging on Carson, but things happen all the time. What do you think, Charles?
Steve, you make a good point about making sure you have an insurance policy there, because Josh McCown was age of 40, and they brought him back during the season because Nate Sudfeld, who was supposed to be the backup quarterback and was getting a lot of work in the preseason, or was going to, he broke his wrist in the preseason opener against Tennessee. So they never got to have him there to truly be the backup. That's why McCown was there. Sudfeld was out much of the season. So to your point, Carson Wentz in 4 seasons. He has started all 16 regular season games in 2 seasons, seasons 1 and seasons 4. But unfortunately, in season 4, in the playoffs, he gets hurt early in the game, can't finish. They lose to Seattle at home in a game they did have a chance to win if he's able to go the distance. So you're right about the insurance policy part of it. What I'm eager to see is what Philadelphia really has in mind here, because Ian Rapoport talked about that Taysom Hill utilizing guys, Philly special stuff that we saw in the Super Bowl. That has the ring of what they want to do with Jalen Hurts. We'll talk about this a little bit more, but I just wonder, after Jalen Hurts gets over the excitement of being picked, the reality of, I'm a quarterback, but we'll find out how that plays out.
All right, that's a great point there, Charles. And, of course, all Philly fans are saying, we love Carson Wentz, but who won us the ring? That was his backup, Nick Foles. Now, if you're a Philly fan here, you're sitting there, Charles, and you say, we still have some holes to fill. Yes, we were a playoff team. Yes, we were severely banged up in 2019. But what are we doing with a guy who's going to play, I don't know, 5 to 10% of the offensive snaps, maybe?
My guess is that Howie Roseman would tell all those fans, okay, we have a plan, and we're going to try and fill those holes here the rest of the draft. Remember, we start tomorrow, and we get into rounds 4 through 7, trying to bring some other guys in and maneuver around. But they felt like in this case, I think similar to Green Bay, the value of getting this guy, and especially with what the plans are calling for, what they want to do with him, okay, we're going to fill in the holes, yes, but we can't turn down this guy here at the end of the second round in order for us to give it a shot. Totally understand where Philly fans are coming from. We thought they would do something different, but instead, the plan got a little bit of an adjustment, and we'll see how that turns out, Steve.
All right, guys. So Jalen Hurts ends up in Philadelphia there in round 2. No big surprise that he ended up going on Friday night. Now, DeAndre Swift, he was shocked he did not go in round 1. In fact, afterward, he tweeted, "Say no more." Basically, I'm just going to let my play do the talking. The Georgia running back ended up being the 3rd pick of the second round, going to Motown, averaged 6.6 yards per carry, and now he will team up with Kerryon Johnson in the backfield behind Matthew Stafford. And skill position players were truly on display there in round 2. 7 wideouts. That was after 6 went in round 1. Only 1 running back went in round 1 on Thursday night. Well, 5 came off the board. And we also saw our first tight end in Cole Kmet going to the Chicago Bears with pick number 43. All right, Charles Davis, is there one skill position player in particular that caught your eye there in round 2 where he went, yeah, that's the right move?
We just saw him, and that's DeAndre Swift out of the University of Georgia, the top-ranked running back for most people, and the idea that he could go right there to Detroit. I thought the Lions would go big with their first pick on day 2. Well, they ended up going big in terms of big production, going with DeAndre Swift, because I knew running back was in play. They have to get another runner because Kerryon Johnson, while being their primary guy, has been dinged up a lot. But Swift now brings that ability to actually be RB1, not just RB2 and a complimentary guy. He can be the lead dog for them, and they've been looking for that guy since Barry Sanders. Think of all the guys that have been drafted in the first or second round by Detroit that haven't panned out over the long haul. Can DeAndre Swift be that guy? Kerryon Johnson has given them production, but he's been dinged a lot. Amir Abdullah, he ended up leaving Detroit with some fumbling issues. Mikael LaSure, Javid Best, Kevin Jones came in with a lot of carries similar to Jonathan Taylor of Wisconsin this year. None of them panned out over the long haul. Can DeAndre Swift be that guy to take some pressure off of Matthew Stafford throwing the football?
That's really good, Charles. The interesting skill player that I see is Chase Claiborne, the kid out of Notre Dame who is Canadian, because he is Chase Claypool. The really interesting thing with him is he plays wide receiver. It may not be immediate, but I see and watch him, he's going to be a tight end. Once he gets going, he goes, but it takes him a little bit of time to get going. Big guy, huge target, extremely athletic. However, he also is a guy that he hasn't been playing football for a long time. And you see right here, he can show, he has flashes. However, they already have Ebron and they have Vance McDonald. But Vance McDonald struggled last year. And I really believe because of Jesse James not being there, it really showed that he's not ready to take on that. So that's why they got Ebron. And look and see, and you'll see Chase to move into that tight end position, because I don't believe he's as fluid as a wide receiver that you expect out of a wide receiver. So I believe kind of like a Darren Waller, he's drafted